book discussion, Middle England, a novel by Jonathan Coe. This is a great novel. I enjoyed the read a lot. It's a story of ordinary people in England in the 2010s. It describes, through a very meticulous and very skillful build-up of characters, the complexities of political decisions, of political streams, thoughts, psychological developments, all kinds of very difficult human, emotional complexities. It describes all of these developments through the characters and their stories, and I think that to me is the biggest achievement of this book. I'm a big fan of these types of novels. I think the best way to study history is to read novels, and this is a perfect example. If you want to understand the most recent history in Britain and the Western world, it applies not just to Britain. What Coe describes here in Middle England might as well be called Middle America, Middle France, Middle Germany, Middle Western world. Now, I want to focus on three things in this book discussion. First, I want to talk about the actual context in which these characters are evolving, and I'm calling it sort of a modern Madame Bovary. So this is, in a sense, the decline of the British aristocracy of the 20th century through the eyes of the aristocracy, which of course doesn't consider itself to be the aristocracy. What I mean with that is the two characters in the end, the main characters, Sophie and Benjamin, both are privileged aristocrats. They don't consider themselves to be like that at all, but they are. And they both live on the money that was made in the metropolitan center of New York, of London, with all the money that banks and investment banks and all that nasty stuff that the people that are in political agreement with them actually despise. And I think this is a very interesting complexity of today's political landscape that Coe depicts in a very subtle way. So Benjamin is the outside, and actually it comes across in the interview that he gives to the literary magazine after he publishes his first book. He considers himself an outsider. He considers himself somebody who didn't have the chance, a failure, but he is an aristocrat. He sold his flat in the London real estate market. He made money on London real estate, which is basically making money off of the ordinary people in England, because London is the metropolitan center of abundance, of wealth, and everybody else is subdued to that. The same, Sophie, his niece, is a nice lady, I wouldn't call her a social justice warrior, and I'm glad that the character that is the social justice warrior in this book, Coriander, doesn't get more prominence, because it's difficult to read these types of characters. But Sophie is she's a fruitcake, so she has good intentions, but her actions are not good. Actually, they're despicable. Like, she not just abandons her husband in the name of an ideal of some, pro-Europe, pro-multicultural ideal. She even has her husband abandon his mother in the name of an ideal. She befriends a certainly innocent Lithuanian immigrant. There's nothing wrong with that. But she makes her husband tacitly comply with her idealism and break his bonds with his mother. So this is how bad fruitcakes are. And I think Coe brings that across really well. So, but to me, I think the most powerful development in this book, the most powerful description of the political landscape and the emotional and social landscape of the 2010s is we have poverty in the Western world for the first time, and that is driven by inflation, it's driven by the financial crisis and things like that. So that's number one. We have clear bifurcation of people who have purpose and people who are living off the gravy train of governments and money printing by the banking system, of which the EU is even a bigger symbol than the Federal Reserve in the US. If you, and by the way, Coe doesn't talk about this because I don't think that is a common view, particularly on literary crisis. This is coming from a hedge fund manager that sees the world through the lens of economics. The EU is first and foremost a currency union that strengthens the banking system and the cronies around the banking system, and also strengthens a few metropolitan centers in Europe, such as London, Paris, Frankfurt, and Brussels, maybe Madrid, and at the expense of everybody else. And you can see that through the ballot. You can see that in real estate prices. You can see that in the way people vote, in jobs, and everything. And that comes across here very well. The people in London, they are wealthy, they are arrogant, they despise everybody else, and everybody else is jealous of that wealth and also frustrated because they are poor. And I think that led to Trump, and that led to Brexit, and that led to the current dichotomy or cultural discrepancies and cultural, I wouldn't say the culture war necessarily, I wouldn't call it a war, but the cultural differences that we're dealing with right now in the Western world. And also that led to the strength of the woke movement, which is an anti-establishment movement, a movement that is trying to destroy this ancien regime and rebuild something else. But what's new about this type of revolution is it's coming from the ancien regime itself. Because the one thing, and this is the second thing I want to say, the one thing that everybody in this book, whether it's the pro-Europe aristocrats or the pro-Brexit ordinary people, they're all devoid of love. There's no love here. There's no emotional attachment to people, no human bondage. There are ideals. Everybody's attached to an ideal. Everybody's attached to an idea. And it's not just Sophie and Coriander, the younger people here, who are attached to some stupid idea of multiculturalism. It's Benjamin is attached to an idea, his house on the river, and Charlie's attached to an idea, his family that he doesn't have. And Doug is attached to an idea of a political career that he doesn't have. So everybody's attached to an idea, and nobody actually has love. In the end, Benjamin ends up with his sister. He's divorced. Sophie is pregnant, but she has a husband that she doesn't love. She's promiscuous, not really in the sense of screwing around, but clearly she's not a devout wife, and that is almost painful to go through, because on the one hand she refuses to have sex with a lover, and then after she breaks up with her husband because of Brexit, she wants to go back to that lover, who then is married, and then of course she gives up on that relationship. But what's really striking is this lack of love, lack of devotion, lack of emotional attachment, and lack of purpose. The only people who have purpose in this book are people, it's the forklift guy, it's the guy who teaches people how to drive, like the banker, the English professor, the journalist, Benjamin, who's a writer, his sister, it's not even clear what she does. Nobody has purpose. And I think that, to me, as a conclusion of the book, and I want to draw a conclusion here, really brings it down to where do we stand right now? And I think that is the biggest achievement of this novel, is this, Coe takes stock with, okay, where are we right now? And I think we're on a fork in the road, and the decision is, do I want to have purpose in life or not? If I want to have purpose in life, I better choose to have purpose in life. I do something real. I help people. I do something for money. So they pay me to do something. Benjamin can't get over that. He has written a book that nobody wants to read. He has opened his escape from Brexit is a nice house, a villa in the Provence. I mean, who can afford that? He's an aristocrat who wants to start a new job as a teacher, and then, of course, he fails. He's incapable of delivering value to people, but he has a lot of ideas. He wrote a 5,000-page book because he has a lot of ideas, but they're all useless. They're all not worth anything. And I think the French guy that comes to his class summarizes it very well. His life is a failure. His life is a sequence of failures and lack of achievement, which ends up in a house on a roof. That's not a good way to live. And I think all these people, Sophie, Coriander, Dove, the women in the book, nobody has purpose other than the father was working in a factory, Coe. Ian, of course, is a driving instructor. These people have purpose. Now, I think this brings us to a much higher level of urgency. I think what we need in 2026 and forward, we need purpose and urgency. You have to work towards something, and you have to learn how to love. Learn how to love your job. Learn how to love the people around you. Forget the ideals. Forget the idealistic utopian lifestyles of whatever it is, the Green Revolution, multicultural stuff. All these things are utopian. Look at the facts. Do you really want to live with Lithuanian immigrants who speak another language? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But do you really want them? You don't really want them. You can use them as working, as labor, but you don't want them, and you absolutely should not despise your own culture just so they can live next to you. I think you need to have a base, love your own, accept others, be tolerant to others, but don't despise your own in the name of others. And this is the risk of idealistic people. And in this case, for example, the immigrants, the Lithuanian immigrants, they are not really a problem at all. They're nice people. But they become contentious because of the British people have ideals that they want to live up to and they can't. It's very easy to have ideals. It's very hard to act. That's why most people live in utopia. I think the last thing I want to say is, and I always like to add some literary technical critique as a writer myself. I think Coe does a very good job in building up characters and showing the personalities through their actions instead of describing them. And this is it's almost like an existentialist novel in that sense. And I would say Coe is sort of in the tradition of definitely of people like Hemingway and later on, let's say Julian Barnes, another British author I like a lot. Also Somerset Maugham. He's just showing the people as they are, what they do, very raw, and then you can sort of connect your own conclusions out of that with the context that he gives. I think that's very powerful. He has a very subtle, satirical way of adding fun to the read, which is also very appreciated, very entertaining. So overall, I think very much appreciated. I think the last thing I want to say before I want to go, and I don't want to just give a book critique here about a book that is really a contemporary depiction of our socio-political environment. I want to give a little bit of hope here. And the hope is that as a person, you can only focus on what you can control. And what you can control is find purpose in life and find love. That's the message that this book gives me. Thank you.